Food is the new status symbol, and it's being increasingly presented to us as a subtle marker of wealth, luxury, and indulgence in fashion, influencer, and beauty content. Brands are using it as a vibrant backdrop to their increasingly dull-looking products, and influencers are posting tablescapes showing an abundance of food like we're back in the Renaissance period, and or peddling $20 smoothies that promise wellness in a perfectly Instagrammable cup. So why is it that fashion seems to be selling food right now? Let's discuss. Before we get into it, welcome back to my channel. My name's Katie. I talk about sustainable fashion, online culture, and how those two things intersect. So if that sounds good to you, then subscribe to my channel. Follow me on all of my other social media, especially Instagram though, where I do a lot of polls that show up in these videos. And with that, let's get into it. In a recent deep dive video I did looking at dupe culture, I predicted that we're going to start seeing the markers of luxury shift away from fashion with its easy replicable dupes. And instead, those status symbols will become items that are actually unattainable and exclusive right now. And apparently, it's increasingly looking like food will be this item. If Hailey-Bieber's new campaign with Fila and her own rhode marketing is anything to go by. Although she's definitely not the only person leaning into food in fashion. Rhode in particular is very well known for this kind of marketing. I want to break down how and why it's being used in fashion, what it means for fashion marketing. But first, let's talk about the rise of food as a status symbol in society. So I actually had multiple people send me a tweet they'd seen referencing a new trend prediction for this year. The tweet was talking about one influencer that predicted fresh food would become part of fashion in 2025 because groceries are too expensive and it's a status symbol to waste fresh produce. And in the original TikTok that this tweet was referencing, the creator gave the specific example of Kim Kardashian, who posted an Instagram story of her table decorated with an abundance of fresh food. I think in this case it was grapes. And not only did I find this really interesting from an influencer's point of view, I think it also links to the rise of fashion brands using food as a prop in their creative campaigns. And I want to dive into both of these. And you might be thinking, okay, but who cares? But the reason I wanted to make this video is because I find myself really drawn to this kind of marketing. And I always find myself paying attention to brand campaigns that use fresh fruit or use food as a backdrop in some way. And I wanted to figure out why that is, not only for my own curiosity, but also because I think it's really important to understand why this marketing is capturing our attention so much so that we can become more aware of it, we can understand why we're drawn to it, and we can identify this marketing for what it is, which is selling us products we probably don't need, rather than fall for the underlying powerful marketing message. So okay, to fully understand food as a status symbol, we're going to need to go back a little bit and do a little bit of art history. But feel free to skip to the time I'm going to put on the screen. If you don't want to do this, I'll do a brief catch up. But I think it's really interesting. One of the first things I thought of when seeing that Kim Kardashian Instagram story and thinking about this entire topic is how in old paintings, food always seems to be a feature. And actually, food abundance has historically been used in art to signify wealth, among other things, particularly during the Renaissance period and the Dutch Golden Age. The more variety and freshness of the food shown in these paintings, the more wealth and luxury is conveyed. Given that at those times in history, transportation, refrigeration, and access to produce out of season were not what they are today. It's not like the subjects in these paintings could pop down to their local Sainsbury's and pick up a bag of grapes. These would have likely been imported and come with a very heavy cost. And today we're seeing this visual link between food and wealth through the lens of a different medium, Instagram and brand campaigns. For example, the new campaign between Hailey-Bieber and Fila, which I think at first glance shows Hailey in a very busy mum way, given that she just had a baby, and the pieces she's wearing as to be suitable for every day, on the run, doing errands, but in like a very glam, chic way, as Hailey conveys with her full face of makeup and very model-esque pose. But this paper grocery bag she's holding full of fresh food and the buttery croissants she's kind of balancing say more to me than she's simply multitasking or busy as a new parent. For one thing, these fresh produce items are some of the brightest parts of the whole image, bringing life and color to what is otherwise a pretty boring editorial. And they're also conveying wealth, because I mean, how much would a bag stuffed with fresh fruit and veg cost in the supermarket today? And for it to be seen going to waste, falling on the floor like it is, makes me think back to that TikTok that was referenced of celebrities using food as decoration, because they are the ones that can afford to do that when prices of food are becoming almost unattainable for the rest of us. I think the direction of this editorial is also supposed to hint to us at sustainability too. Seemingly organic produce falling out of bag that isn't wrapped in plastic, and the bag itself being paper, convey a very subtle image that we pick up without really realizing it. And all of these things are saying so much and making us associate the collection with so much more than it actually is. Just a simple black jacket with a Fila logo. As we briefly covered, food has always been used historically to convey wealth, but I think there's a few more layers to this concept in its modern day use, and that the trend goes deeper than these food props being used simply as status symbols. One of these layers is the concept of sensory marketing. Adverts that play on our taste, touch, smell, and hearing, as well as just our sight. Sensory marketing is often used to invoke specific emotions or associations in consumers, relying on our reactions to sell us a product rather than typical marketing factors like price, features, or utility. And again, this isn't a new marketing approach. One website suggests that sensory marketing was used back as far as the 1940s, but its use has definitely increased since COVID, especially when none of us were able to shop in person, so brands had to heavily rely on online marketing. And I think we're seeing another surgence now, and I can think of a few reasons why. For one thing, I almost feel like everything online is becoming less real, less tangible, more AI driven, that brands are leaning in to comparing their products to tastes and textures that we already know to make their products more real to us, to better convey what their product is selling through our screens. The sweet and smooth feel of caramel for a lip balm, or the freshness and juiciness of a face product. Not to mention the rich colors of the food too. So many of the ad campaigns that use fresh food feel like they're popping off the screen. And it's so much more visually arresting than just a simple tube of lip balm. And simple but highly desirable, highly editorial looking campaign photos. I think one of the other layers to this influx of food related marketing is the idea that we carry with food, of indulgence, of comfort, that certainly works well for brands who are trying to sell us frivolous products in a very hard economy.
Fashion brands are selling you coffee and cakes because food is the new luxury. With the cost of living, food is now a status symbol, which I think is pretty sad. Look at the Prada Cafe, Louis Vuitton, Dior, Ralph Lauren, Miu Miu. They're giving you a taste of luxury, even if you can't afford the $2,000 bag, because it's more likely you can afford an overpriced cake. An expensive coffee is far more attainable than long-term saving in this economy. Nobody is buying this for the taste. It's about social signaling and feeling part of this exclusive designer tribe, serving Instagrammable food to keep you in their world even if you can't buy expensive products.
The feelings we associate with the food that's being used as a backdrop to these products almost make the product themselves irresistible, crave-worthy. Food is a universally understood language, capable of invoking powerful emotions. Like I said, indulgence, comfort, but also nostalgia, happiness, safety, and wellness, which is one of the most important ones brands hone in on. I actually shared some of my brief thoughts on this topic a while ago on Substack before I decided I wanted to do a whole video. And one of my subscribers on there had some really interesting thoughts about why food marketing is everywhere right now. One thing Melanie pointed out that I think is really interesting is that more often than not, it's luxury products that are being considered food, and that the foods being chosen to juxtapose these luxury items are often everyday items. As she mentioned, all food prices are going up right now, but brands are still choosing to use tomatoes and caramel and croissants over caviar and champagne. And her point was that this is not only really appealing visually, but also creates a great contrast between very luxury, almost unattainable products and attainable everyday food that we can all relate to. Bringing it back to fashion then, and bringing it back to my original kind of hypothesis for this video, which was, is fashion trying to sell us food now? I think even though food is being used as a fashion accessory, it's pretty obvious fashion brands aren't trying to sell us food in their campaigns. But there is this interesting link growing between fashion content, food, and influencer content, and almost a blurring of the lines between these industries, which is kind of helped by our growing obsession with fashionable food influencers, or foodie fashion influencers, I guess, depending on how you look at it. A couple of examples I want to point out is that some brands are taking this turn towards food as to collaborate with artists who use food as their medium. Like this one creator who uses edible art to recreate fashion outfits and has collaborated with brands in the past to remake their products, which I think is really, really interesting, but also an outlier of how literal this food trend in fashion is. I think the more popular strategy, and one that a lot of brands are doing, is putting their money into working with food influencers like Nara Smith, which makes me wonder if there's also an intersection going on with the rise of tradwife content online and the rise of conservatism in fashion. Although I do want to save all of my thoughts on that for another upcoming video, so I'm going to leave it there and get you guys thinking about it. And now's a good time to remind you to make sure you're subscribed to the channel so that you see that video when it comes out. I think there's also another facet to this with influencers trying to jump onto this food trend and trying to expand their fashion and lifestyle content to include food. Like Haileybeber's $20 strawberry skin glaze smoothie, which Vogue calls a perfect blend of TikTok-fueled food trends and influencer marketing. Whether that is the reason why they're flying off the shelves or not, the smoothie is so popular and reportedly sells 40,000 units a month. And now other influencers are jumping to release their own $20 smoothies, as just one example of influencers trying to break into the food market. This is a massive topic, and I'm sure I haven't covered every angle, so feel free to add your thoughts in the comments below. But I just want to reiterate why I felt like I wanted to do this video, not only because I found the topic really interesting, but because I think as consumers it's so important that we're aware of this growing trend of food being used as an accessory, a trend for everyone to hop on, as a display of wealth, and as a marketing tactic to subtly sell us stuff that we probably don't need. And hopefully by watching this video, I've made myself and others more aware of the emotions food invoke within us in art, and if you count it as art, creative campaigns, so that we can hopefully identify and separate those emotions towards food with our emotions towards the products that we're being pushed to buy. So with that, I think this is the end of the video. It's been super interesting to figure out why I'm always drawn to these kind of adverts, and I hope it was interesting to you. Let me know if you liked it in the comments. Let me know if you have any other thoughts. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and if you want to watch another video, the one on the screen now is the one YouTube thinks you'll like the best, so go ahead and click that if you want. But otherwise, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.